What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here for the Fightful.com podcast for September 6th, post-Labor Day edition. I am joined by Showdown Joe. This show brought to you by Onnit. Go there to our podcast page, Fightful.com/podcast. Open up any of our previous podcasts. You will see that Onnit link. Check out a great world of apparel, of equipment, of supplements, all that good stuff. The undefeated UFC fighter CM Punk has been seen wearing Onnit shirts. You can too, my friends. Also by Draft Beast. It's happening Thursday, guys. Thursday, the NFL season kicks off. And there's no better way that I could think of to celebrate the beginning of a new NFL season than to take all your money from you people. So go there, draftbeast.com. If you didn't buy me a wedding gift, what I'll do is I'll win your money from you. Then I will buy myself something, wrap it up. I will hire a courier to bring it to my house, and I'll do an unboxing video for Fightful.com of me opening the gift that I buy myself with your money. So that you all have that to look forward to. Draftbeast.com, that's the place to be. Showdown Joe, how are you?
Doing pretty good there, married man. I think all is well. Great time away with my family. Last 3 days, obviously with the holiday on the Monday yesterday. Had some, I'll say, various embarrassing jet ski incidents. The first time, for those that own boats or jet skis, you know, at the back where you got to put your plugs in so water doesn't go into the engine. Yeah, this guy sort of went on my jet ski way too many times to mention. And this weekend I forgot to put the plugs in and got stuck in the middle of a lake and had to get towed back by a wonderful young lady who saved the day until I got to the dock there, Sean, and obviously got ridiculed for the next 2 days. And then we tried to figure out what was wrong, blah, blah, blah. In the end, no damage whatsoever. It just loosened up the battery terminals and a pretty big expense saved.
So you had to be towed back.
I understand why you want to take people's money, because your money is gone as of, 48 hours ago. You're toast, bud.
Oh, yeah. And now we're looking at potentially buying a house, renting. We don't know. Guys, support Fightful.com. That way I'm not broadcasting this out of a cardboard box off of my neighbor's Wi-Fi. We have to look at possibly buying a house, something of that nature. You had to be towed back, you say.
Yeah, so we couldn't figure out what was going on. There's a couple of other incidents as well, but when it stalled, but when the girl that showed up there was just pure magic. She rolls up because I was actually riding with another friend's fiance, and we're just cruising the lake, and then we stopped to talk to determine whether or not we're going to go through this riverbed. We saw swimmers there. We're like, you know what, let's just go back and come back in about an hour. Let's take some of the kids out for a spin. All right, cool. And as I go to turn it back on, it wouldn't turn over. It wouldn't do anything. And then she's like, I'll be back. And she takes off. I'm there, I got a mini paddle. I open up the paddle up and I start rowing. And I'm trying. I am getting nowhere fast. And I look up to see where the sun is. And I'm like, we got a problem here. We got to figure this out, because if I have to roll this thing back to where the dock is, I'm in big trouble. Next thing you know, she pulls up. Dude, I'm telling you, if there was ever I don't know, like, for all you older guys out there, MacGyver or whatever, she just jumps off her jet ski, big rope in hand, swims over to the front. I'm just watching her go. She swims to the front of my, we're talking 150 feet of water here, jumps over, ties a knot on my jet ski in the front, swims back to hers, tied on the back. She jumps back on her jet ski, and I'm like, the heck just happened here? She looks back at me, winks, and says, hold on. Holy smoke. She took me back. She told me back to shore. For a good minute there, I must have gotten sprayed with, just picture like a fire hose of just water all over the place, trying to hold on. You can't steer. So, yeah, it was a good time. It was good. It was fun to finally get back, and then I just got ridiculed because a lot of people it was a busy weekend at the beach. Everyone knew, quote unquote, Showdown Joe was there from the TV show and blah, blah, and they were just ripping me nonstop. So, yeah, good weekend.
It could have been worse. At least you got towed and not fingered, Joe.
Good point.
It could be worse. We had UFC Germany on Saturday. Interesting show towards the tail end, I'll say. Some of the notable results from the prelims. Rustam Khabilov beat Leandro Silva 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. We questioned why this match was the opener. Now Khabilov has won 3 in a row after dropping 2 in a row. that's a very promising thing for him. 3 straight decisions, so he's not winning in fantastic fashion, but he's become a mainstay almost on these European cards this year. He's been on 3 of them: England, I think the show in the Netherlands, and in Germany. I think he's created himself a nice little niche in doing that, so that's kind of cool. Where do you think he stands in this lightweight division? Because it's about to get a lot more interesting if a guy named Conor McGregor decides to go after that title.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've seen Khabibulov in person when I was over in Bahrain. He was there alongside Nurmagomedov, and these guys were just absolute murderers and monsters in the gym there. Now, the talent level that was there training wasn't that high. Obviously, Frankie Edgar aside and Renzo Gracie and stuff like that. But that's when I really got a sense of, how awesome Khabibulov is. But it doesn't matter what you do in a gym. It's when you get to the octagon and when you get to the cage and you see that the fact that, Leandro Silva went the full 15 minutes with him shows you how good Silva is as well, because I place a lot of stock in a guy like Khabibulov. I mean, I pegged this guy even to the point where Frankie Edgar was kind of just, nodding his head. He's like, man, this is a bad dude. Like, I mean, not that Frankie Edgar would ever be afraid of him, but he was giving him crazy respect. And the same thing with Nurmagomedov, and those 2 guys were owning that room, beating the crap out of each other, taking care of sparring partners and do what they got to do. I always figured he'd be further ahead in his UFC career than he is right now. Unfortunately, being the opener of a UFC, event in Germany on Fight Pass. I mean, I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure by this point he'd be on some main cards, maybe some pay-per-views. But I guess sometimes it takes longer than most. Sometimes it takes longer for some guys. Dana White said it before, to get used to being in the octagon. So give him time and we'll see what happens. But where is he right now? Man, this is a 155-pound weight division, man. Lightweights and welterweights are the 2 most stacked divisions in MMA. That's naturally where the average male body would fall into. Other than that, you're either a small guy at featherweight and flyweight and stuff like that and bantamweight, or you're a big dude that doesn't cut weight and you can cut to middleweight. But 155 and 170 is a very, very tough division. It takes a long time for most guys to actually move up there, unless, like you said, you're Conor McGregor.
You look back, and I'm starting to understand why maybe he's put in the first fight of the night. He's had 3 straight decision wins. Before that, he dropped 2 fights. His one really amazing fight was against Jorge Masvidal, and it's kind of hard to not have an amazing fight with Jorge Masvidal. Before that, win via a thumb injury, and then he had that beautiful suplex win. That was really the last time that he had a stoppage that you're like, damn, look at that guy. And that was his first fight in the UFC. So I kind of understand that. There were a couple of other notable things that happened on the prelims. Jack Hermanson made his debut, called out Thales Leites afterwards. You don't often hear a debuting fighter call out a veteran like that. I thought that was impressive. Ashley Evans-Smith also wants a rematch with Raquel Pennington. Ashley Evans-Smith has won 3 out of 4 in the UFC, so that's not out of the realm of possibility. But given the way that Raquel Pennington has performed over the last, couple of years, I would think she's maybe destined for different things than a rematch that was a first-round finish. What do you think about these 2 fighters in particular calling out the 2 people they called out?
You mentioned Jack Hermanson, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with his performance. I mean, 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Those are pretty good scorecards. I think he's got some time before he can call out a guy like Thales Leites. But
yes.
I was very, very impressed with his performance. I like when a guy fights like that. It's the same thing with Khabibulov, man. When he started off in the UFC, you're like, wow, this guy's made to put on a performance like that. There's still some time to figure out what's going to happen with Jack Hermanson and his career, and where does he go from here. But I think a bout with Thales Leites is still, it's still a ways away. In terms of Ashley Evans-Smith, solid performance, solid, TKO finish there with the elbows and the way she was able to trap, Veronica. But can you make the argument that she deserved that rematch? Probably no, not yet, considering how it finished the first time. But it's not like it's a division that's super stacked. And good on her for calling. It's one of those things. If you want fights, you got to sort of make some noise. And the fact that you and I are talking about it, she's making noise. So will she get it? Probably not. But good on her for doing it. It'll take some time, but she's a lot closer to fighting or getting that rematch with Raquel than Jack Hermanson, in my opinion, is getting a shot to take on a guy like Thales Leites.
I couldn't agree more. Also on the prelims, Peter Sabata won. That's his third or fourth fight that he's won. Taylor Lapilus, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not.
Also, you got to throw a French accent in there. I think it's Lapilus.
Lapilus. There we go. Also has won 3 of 4 now. So some hidden gems of fighters on that show, or on those prelims, but there was not that fight to me that stood out, and I was like, damn, I got to call up everybody and tell them about this fight. Not on those prelims, but there were a few very interesting things that happened on this main card. You had the German, Nick Hein, get the victory. That you got to love that for Germany when they have a German card like that. Unanimous decision victory, 29-28, 30-28, 30-27. But what I want to ask you most about this is, what does it tell you when you have 3 completely different scorecards? Do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing?
Generally speaking, judging should never truly be subjective. And that what I see there are 3 judges that are having different sort of almost scoring criteria, as perhaps not paying attention to what should be scored with the basic rules of the unified rules of mixed martial arts. I mean, how many times have we seen scorecards where it's a split decision where one guy's got 30-27, the other guy gets a 30-27, and then a judge in the middle has a 29-28? I mean, now those are scorecards right there that are completely whacked, right? But it just goes to show. Again, I don't know who the 3 judges were. I was listening to when they were being announced by Bruce Buffer, and some of the names I just didn't recall, either hadn't heard of. But it goes. It's still a sport. I hate saying when it's young because I don't believe it's young. There should, the saying has always been, Sean, never leave it in the hands of the judges. Well, that's, I call bullshit on that. If the judges are certified and they know what they're doing and they're scoring it correctly, ground or cage control, whatever you want to call it, then they're going to score the fight correctly. And you should only have officials that know, or officials and or judges that know what they're doing. It's when they don't know what they're doing. Like there was one card here, there was one fight when I was looking, I'm like, what were you watching? That there was one round where the fighter, I know he lost. He got 2. I'm trying to remember which fight it was. I was just completely like, dude, what are you watching? I'm just looking at the scorecards right. Okay, it's not coming off the top. It's not showing me anything here. But there was one fight where I was like, are you kidding me, dude? Might have been, it was a Jim Wallhead fight.
Yeah. And Jim Wallhead, after all that he's been through, all that's went on with his career, from the Ultimate Fighter to Bellator, finally makes it to the UFC, and he loses.
That sucks, man.
Yeah, it does. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, Judo Jim Wallhead is always been a guy that, anyone and everyone in mixed martial arts knows. The guy's got, almost 40 fights, if I'm not mistaken. He's at that age. I know he's in his early 30s. He's been around the block. He's finally made it to the UFC. But, Sean, you and I have talked about it before. Is this a situation where the MMA mileage on the body didn't catch up? Eating since 2005, that puts 11 years on his body. That's no joke, man.
Yeah, that can be very rough. And I mean, geez, he's been fighting since he was 21 years old, I think. Maybe even younger. He's probably trained since he was about 20. So, I mean, that can be very rough. And that was one of the more anticipated fights on the prelims because of who he was. And it just didn't work out for him. But he'll get another crack at it. The UFC doesn't usually do one and dones. They usually give guys at least 2 chances. So he will have another chance to make good on this. Hopefully for his sake he does, because I would hate for him to get there and then after all that, not at least get one victory. Well, I'll say this. We look kind of stupid today, Joe, because we said that the fight between Ryan Bader and Ilir Latifi was either going to go all 3 rounds or would probably end very early. In fact, it was a knockout right in the middle of the fight. Right smack dab in the middle, Joe.
All right, podcast over. Have a nice night, Sean. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're idiots. Bye-bye.
Indeed. So this KO from Ryan Bader, that was nice.
That was
fantastic.
Ridiculous the way Latifi just falls back like that. It was like,
it looked like he got hit by Rumble Johnson.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
That was unbelievable. Like, And that happens from Ryan Bader. Like sometimes it's easy to forget that happens from Ryan Bader because for so long he had that reputation as the grinder, as the guy who didn't have the most exciting fights, but he can sleep people.
That was from the takedown attempt, right? Ealer tried to get that takedown, and Ryan's like, "You're not doing that, and you're slow right now, and I'm going to hit you with a knee." Am I correct?
Sure.
Yeah, and then he just flops back, and you're like, "Whoa, dude! Oh my god!" And you saw his hands sort of doing this, like, "I'm okay." Well, no, you're hurting, bud.
Somebody asked me, and I think he would be, but they asked me if I thought that Ilir Latifi would still be in the UFC had Gustafsson not pulled out of that fight with Musashi. I think he would have made it there by now.
Good question. Good question. Trying to go back to his track record before he got there, because that was like what, like not even a week's notice. It was like super, super quick.
Yeah, he was 7-2 before that, and he had just won the Superior Challenge Light Heavyweight Championship. But I mean, heading into this fight, so if you don't include the Musashi fight, which, you know, he wasn't going to win. He was not going to win that fight. He didn't have much of a chance. Going into this Bader fight, he was like 5-1 outside of that because he beat Snake Diabate, he beat Chris Dempsey, he beat Hans Stringer, Sean O'Connell, John Vellante. John Vellante, that was a pretty good victory too, because John Vellante probably the best guy that he beat. So I mean, I think that he would have eventually gotten there, but the fact that he had that fight with Gegard Musashi, that definitely sped up the process.
Oh, 100%. I mean, taking that on short notice, at that point, you were in the good books of the then Zuffa era. You saved a main event. You saved a show in Sweden. You make Dana White happy, Joe Silva happy, and, you know, they're going to reward you. And it's not like the guy doesn't compete and have good fights. It's not like he just shows up there and takes a beating. He goes in there. Right? He goes in there, does what he has to do, and you know he lives by the edge of a sword. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you know, good for him for trying. I mean, you and I, we broke down this fight with Bader. We kind of figured, yeah, Bader's going to win this fight. It may not be the most exciting fight, could end early, or it could be really boring and go late. But you know, good for Latifi getting in there and banging with these guys. And like I said, that John Vellante victory is no joke. I mean, you take out a guy like that, you know, Chris Weidman's his closest friend and training partner. That's pretty good, man. 12-4 at the time, and now he got that infamous fifth loss that people always talk about. So it's 12-5-1 now. We'll see where he goes from here. But you know, he's always a guy that will be able to compete in Europe. So I think the UFC will still keep him around for sure.
And outside of the Vellante and Musashi fights, generally his fights are very good. Ilir Latifi's. I just thought with the way that he fights, generally his skill set and Ryan Bader's skill set, it would make for a less than exciting fight. But that finish, there was plenty of excitement about that finish. And Ryan Bader continues to look really good. 6 of his last 7 he's won. He has a problem with some of the top guys in their prime. When you're talking a Glover Teixeira, and Anthony Rumble Johnson, a John Jones, obviously. He lost to Tito Ortiz one time. There was that. He lost to Machida. Definitely those two were not in their prime. I would like to clarify that. But, you know, he does have some very, very nice wins on his record. Little Nogueira, Vinny Magalhaes back in like 2008. I don't want to say Fejao because Fejao sucks now, to be quite honest with you. Ovin St. Preux, Phil Davis, Rashad Evans a little bit past his prime. But, I mean, those – if you put those names on a list and you said who was the guy who beat all these guys, you might be surprised to learn that was Ryan Bader because he kind of flies under the radar a little bit.
No, you're totally correct. I mean, if you go up and down his record, it's pretty impressive. But like you said, when you start getting into guys, minus of course the Tito Ortiz and Lyoto Machida, although that Machida fight, he made a massively tactical error.
Yes.
You can't rush in on a guy like that. You're going to pay the punishment if you do that, and you know he got that obviously in the second round. But yeah, you go up and down this list: Anthony Johnson, Glover Teixeira, and John Jones, right? Like top guys in the division, right? So he is one of those guys that is a top 10 fighter, arguably a top 5 fighter, but once he gets in there with some of the top 5 guys is when he ends up losing these fights. Something in Ryan Bader's arsenal either needs to be cleaned up, adjusted, or enhanced for him to do much better than what he's doing right now at 205. So Ilir Latifi is a step down from Anthony Johnson, because Anthony Johnson really put a hurting on Ryan Bader in that fight. So it is what it is, but we'll see. Bader's still relatively young. It's not like he's in his 40s. I mean, the guy is 33, but he's a wrestler, and those guys can just go on forever. So we'll see what happens.
Sure, and he's only lost to guys who have competed for light heavyweight titles. So you know what? If you're a gatekeeper in the UFC, make your living doing that. Not a damn thing wrong with it. There are far worse jobs that you could have in life in combat sports than being the light heavyweight gatekeeper. I don't think there's any shame in it. And plus, he'll always be that guy. If it's last minute, you throw him in there. Cool, throw him in there. He might not have the most exciting fight, but I was ready to watch him fight Cormier last year. When they were jaw-jacking back and forth, I was fully ready.
For the press conference, that press conference was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It made me interested in the fight, and the UFC didn't do it. And he was coming off of, I think, 5 straight wins. And man, you want to talk about coming off of 5 straight wins? Anthony Perosh is Anthony Perosh, not a big deal. But Fei Zhao, it's easy to sit there and build that up on UFC Countdown and saying he's a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. Ovince St. Preux, we've seen him compete, and of course he choked out the now legendary Nikita Krylov, so that's a huge talent in the MMA world. Phil Davis is Phil Davis, and Phil Davis on any given night could defeat probably 98% of the light heavyweight division. And Rashad Evans. That
was a fight that sent Phil Davis to Bellator.
It absolutely was. And you could have given Ryan Bader a title shot after that. Absolutely. And I don't think anybody would have been like, oh, no, don't do that. He earned it. And unfortunately, he ran into Rumble Johnson. And, Rumble Johnson changes people's lives. Alexander Gustafsson.
Now that we're talking about Bader like that, I mean, we go back to that press conference when he crashed the press conference and was basically, John with DC. He should have kept doing it over and over, even though he did lose to Anthony Johnson afterwards. I mean, that's something Ryan Bader may want to consider. Just continually call it DC. Just nonstop over and over and over again. Even if he doesn't have the title, just keep calling him out over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, it would be very easy for Bader to say that Cormier was ducking him. I mean, it would be very easy for him to just throw that out there. And if people think you're crazy and you're stupid, fine. People thought that Chael Sonnen was crazy and stupid. I didn't believe a word Chael Sonnen said when he was talking all that trash about Anderson Silva, the greatest fighter in the world. I was like, man, he's really trying to sell this pay-per-view. And I'm not falling for it. I'm buying the pay-per-view, but I'm not buying the list of goods he's selling. And then we saw what happened. So very, very interesting to see where Ryan Bader goes from here. But we had another light heavyweight, Alexander Gustafsson, pretty dominant, especially after the first couple of minutes against Jan Blachowicz. 30-27 across the board. It's been a long time since Gustafsson fought. He contemplated retirement, as we mentioned before. What did this performance tell you? Another thing we mentioned, this is only his second victory since the calendar hit 2013.
It's a weird scenario. I mean, I was watching this fight with Gustafsson, and you and I both spoke about, this is going to technically be a very dominant finish or dominant victory by Alexander Gustafsson, or it's going to be a situation of much fight. I was watching this and thinking to myself, okay, Alexander was in trouble a couple of times, but I think he's trying something new here. I think what he's doing is he's working on his takedowns, and it's more glorified sparring session. It's an actual real fight, and now testing his newfound techniques of taking someone down on the ground and controlling the hips, making sure your shoulders are aligned, making sure if his hips move, you move, and stuff like that. Constantly trying to pass the guard, just throwing a different element to his game. Because remember, this is a guy that did take down John Bones Jones. So he's got skills to take down anyone in this division when you think about it. But to me, it was almost like, okay, I've learned these new skills. Now we're going to test them out in a real fight. Forget about the finish. If I get the finish, great. Let me get my 15 minutes in and just get out there and work and earn my paycheck.
This is a big step for Gustafsson because, like I said, he's been in some headline fights. He lost that fight to John Jones, very close. He had the fight against Daniel Cormier. That's a headline fight. But the results over the past several years hadn't been indicative of him having that spot. Now, this wasn't a top talent that he fought, but it's, as we've mentioned, these types of fights need to happen more often. Get somebody back in there. Get him going. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a reason they have these fights in boxing. There's a reason why tune-up fights happen so much in that sport. And I think that Alexander Gustafsson benefited from this, much like John Jones, kind of benefited from the Ovent St. Preux one. You could tell that John Jones needed that fight with Ovent St. Preux. I could tell that Alexander Gustafsson needed this fight at UFC Germany. It wasn't a spectacular finish. It wasn't anything of that nature. But it's the fight that needed to happen to have him, I think, mentally ready and put him back in there with top five light heavyweights. Let's look at the landscape of this division right now. John Jones, we don't know what's up with him. By all means, Rumble Johnson's getting that next shot, or he should at least. What's next for Gustafsson? Who would be next? Maybe Glover Teixeira?
Or John Jones?
Sure.
I'm
cool with that.
Not that I'm not buying that John shouldn't get an immediate title shot because he's arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
How many times can you piss away that, though? Come on.
And now you get Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, and this is a categorically different situation, but Dominic Cruz, everybody knew he was getting that shot when he came back. Like, they knew that he was going to be in that top fight when he came back, but then he just got hurt so many times. They're like, listen, you got to fight Mizugaki. And he was like, cool, whatever. Now, this is the same with Jones, only Jones isn't dealing with injuries. He's dealing with screwing up repeatedly. So that's even more understandable that you say, hey, John, listen, you screw up a lot, so let's make this fight happen. And maybe John Jones wants to avenge that because as we've heard before, John Jones did not train a lot for that fight. He came in incredibly out of shape. I remember his Instagram as he went into that camp. I was like, he's showing up in this kind of shape for this camp? And he didn't seem to take the fight seriously. But I'm still interested to see how this John Jones thing plays out, like with the suspension and all that, because even if he faces a year suspension, he's still got, 10 months left? If they go retroactively from when they pulled him. And we still don't know what Nevada will do.
Well, Nevada's going to base it on what USADA says, right? Like, I mean, Nevada. Oh, then again, Nevada is Nevada. Yeah, who knows? You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. Those they operate in a they're completely different than anyone else. It's just they might be the busiest.
9-year suspension.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's get Obama involved now. This time again.
Main event, and I try to not be biased. But my catch wrestling coaches were out training with Josh Barnett the weekend that this fight was announced. And he used some good old-fashioned catch-as-catch-can wrestling to defeat Josh Barnett. A beautiful double wrist lock takeover that got the fight to the ground, finished it with a rear naked choke. And now we're in a situation where Andrei Arlovski was very, very, very close to contending for the UFC title literally 1 year ago. It was 1 year ago yesterday that he defeated Frank Mir and had won 4 fights in a row. Now he's lost 3 in a row. Now the 3 people he's lost to, Stipe Miocic, champion, Alistair Overeem contending for the title this weekend, and Josh Barnett, the guy who just main evented UFC Germany against him. Not ready to write off Andrei Arlovski yet. I wasn't ready to write off Andrei Arlovski in 2011 when Sergey Kharitonov knocked him out, and that was 4 straight he lost. Now, keep in mind, this is a guy who 2 years ago, when the UFC, or 2.5 years ago, when the UFC signed him, people thought it was ridiculous. There were people who thought this was a ridiculous signing, and I didn't understand that line of thinking. 3rd straight loss say to you about Andrei Arlovski, Joe?
If this was any other division, I'd be concerned. But because it's heavyweight and the power that he has, and and the ability that he can, he can knock dudes out. It's not saying much. I mean, it's heavyweight. It is what it is. Does he have another no once before? Who knows? Anything can happen. He's not getting any younger, so he's got to figure out exactly what to do. That choke, though, by Barnett, that was sick. That was mean. There was nothing nice about that choke. There was nothing, I guess in BJJ it's called, what do they call it, the gentle art, and catches can wrestling is far from that. I mean,
yes.
Eh?
It's the violent art, yes.
That was a violent rear naked choke. Just the way he put his arms in, the way he squeezed, nothing nice about that choke. And good for him, though, to put it on and take out Arlovsky. But, I mean, what do you do with Arlovsky, considering, again, it's a division that's not overly stacked. Anything can happen at any time. These guys have power. Well, when they throw, they're not throwing like a 125-pounder where they can pop, 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 pop. The power is there, but not when you're moving that kind of mass and with that kind of speed. So I wonder if Arlovsky just needs to figure out more of a stick and move. I know I'm not Greg Jackson. I'm not Winklejohn. But I'm thinking maybe more of a stick and move plan and stick to that striking unless you're forced to grapple. And if you are forced to grapple, get the hell out of dodge, get the fight back up, get it to the cage, use the cage to stand back up, and just use your footwork, because of all the heavyweights out there, he's extremely mobile. And if he takes advantage of his footwork, he could probably cause a lot of damage and continue maybe a third run for a shot at the title.
Oh, sure. Like Roy Nelson and Antonio Silva are going to fight soon. I have no doubts that he would piece up either one of those guys, because the blueprint has been created on how to defeat Roy Nelson. And it is exactly how Andrei Arlovsky generally fights when he's a tactical fighter. He pops in and out and stuff like that. But if you want to put a fight on, like, say they do Fight Night Wisconsin or something like that, they could absolutely headline that with an Andrei Arlovsky Roy Nelson fight. That could happen. You could put Andrei Arlovsky, Antonio Silva, second, third from the top on a Fox card. So I think there are plenty of places for him to go. You also have some very interesting names in that division. Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, who has a fight, Magomedov. But I think there are some places for him. And Arlovsky dropped to number 9 in the rankings, so he is about there. That is where he is. And one of the funny things about Josh Barnett, we noted, and I watched this with a bunch of catch wrestlers, you would not believe his gas tank is what it is if you looked at him physically. He doesn't seem to get tired.
Dude, I look at some of these guys that are training sometimes, even Fedor. Look at Fedor. If you saw, and I'm telling you this because I saw a guy in the streets about, I'm going to go 2 weeks ago, coming out of a white Honda Accord. Looked and I'm like, I would never be afraid of that guy. And I look closer, I'm like, that dude looks like Fedor. And I'm like, holy, that guy would kill me, right? So don't ever judge someone by the way they look, because when Fedor is at the beach, if Fedor or Josh Barnett are hanging out somewhere, just doing whatever redneck stuff that they want to do, putting up a deck or cutting grass, and you drive by there, that fat guy over there, that dude will mess you up. I learned a long time ago. One of my oldest training partners is actually right now, he's a chiropractor, neurologist, and going for his med. Like, I mean, the guy's insane. He's got a photographic memory, but he was never, ever, this guy could bench press 300 pounds, no problem. He's maybe a couple inches taller than me, puts him at 5'9", 5'10", and just like a brick house. Shirt off, you're like, this guy, cardio for days. I've never seen him get tired. He went down to Dallas and trained with the Machados forever and was always the first guy there, last guy off the mats, and they're looking at him going, like, not trying to call you fat, but you're not exactly ripped. And this guy had cardio for days.
Josh Barnett, like I said, used that double wrist lock. I wish more people would use the double wrist lock in general in MMA. It's an incredibly underutilized tool with takeovers, with throws, with just saving yourself from a takedown. Because a lot of times you'll see, especially with catch wrestlers, when a waist lock is applied, immediately double wrist lock, and he used that fantastically. Now, Josh Barnett has already fought the 2 people ahead of him in the rankings, Travis Brown, Ben Rothwell. He fought the guy behind him in the rankings, the 2 guys behind him, Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky. Mark Hunt, a much different fighter back then. I could see, well, I don't know if Mark Hunt wants to fight anytime soon. But if he does, I could see them going that route, or Junior Dos Santos, who's sitting at number 4 right now. But there's also a guy, Cain Velasquez, who is always in the title mix. And if you want to keep him busy, that could be the way to go. Because I don't know what will happen with Fabricio Verdum if he beats Travis Brown. Do you think they'll go? The heavyweight division is in an interesting looking place after UFC 203, because this was between last Saturday to this upcoming Saturday, a big week for the UFC heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's going to get crazy this weekend. I'll tell you that. We're going to figure out what's going on. There's going to be some, I don't know about solidification, but we'll know a lot more after this weekend, and unless we see some crazy upsets here. But it'll be interesting to see what will happen with. I do like that Cain Velasquez fight and Josh Barnett. I've always liked that fight, just to see where it would go. I don't think that Travis Brown fight will happen unless Barnett wants it really, really bad. But I mean, Brown messed him up in 60 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. The Rothwell fight, that was kind of interesting. That was kind of like, huh? What just happened there?
You look at the finishes with the Rothwell fight and the Brown fight, and Josh Barnett's the kind of guy that I don't see that type of finish. Like, he's the type of guy that's going to take that. I don't see, if they fought 100 times, I wouldn't, Rothwell could beat him a fair number of times, but not that way. The way that he beat him, that would happen one time. The one time it did happen. The Travis Brown thing, that's another situation where I think that he absolutely didn't expect to get elbowed repeatedly in the head going for that sort of takedown, and he should have, because that's a Travis Brown thing. But interesting place for Josh Barnett, because he's another guy. This heavyweight division skews really, really old. And after this Saturday, there's going to be a lot to talk about. Now, before we go, I wanted to bring up very briefly, because Joe and I are back on Wednesday evening, you guys. Joe, where will you be tomorrow evening?
Miami.
Miami. Are you going to hang out with Pitbull?
No, Pitbull's going to hang out with me.
That sucks. I'm sorry. GSP, a clip from, I think it's, let me check it out. I'm trying to find this story on Fightful.com, you guys. By the way, share it, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, all that good stuff. Register, get access to our forums, our exclusives. Showdown Joe does multiple week, as does Vince Russo, Brandon Howard. We got all kinds of great stuff there. I do plenty of writing. GSP said that he didn't have the same drive to hurt guys when he left MMA a couple of years ago. What does that tell you about his psychological situation back then as opposed to now? Because apparently he's okay with it now, and I know he is your boy.
George is an interesting guy. I'll just say that. I think the testosterone level in his body is a little higher than normal at the moment, if you know what I'm saying. This guy's just itching. Have you ever been to a bar or a club or anywhere with any type of professional athlete who's generally aggressive? Up here it's obviously hockey players. I guess down there are used to contact, are used to just beating the crap out of each other or hitting each other as hard as they can or doing stuff that needs to be done. I think that's where George's mentality is at right now. He's just like, you know what? I used to really enjoy this. I didn't like it. I needed time away. It was getting too much for me, all these interviews, all this stuff, and I'm the face of the sport and the biggest pay-per-view draw, blah, blah, blah. I'm not motivated anymore. And I don't think it's money. I'm pretty confident it's not money. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's not money. I think this is a situation now where he's like, hey, you know what? I could beat someone up. I beat up a few people, have some fun in there. They're not going to hurt me. And it's that point there, right? Like, I mean, talking to some of the guys from the past, Sean, that I know a lot of mixed martial arts that have competed in the UFC that often tell me, I don't want to hurt my opponent. It's just what I do. I don't want to hurt anybody. And George has said it many times. He'll never fight a friend. He never fights a friend. I always talk about was, he's like, Joe, he goes, would you fight a friend? I said, no, I would never fight a friend. I'd fight someone, not even barely an acquaintance, maybe, but it's got to be someone I don't know, and I'll shake their hand afterward. And he says, you know why I would never do it? He goes, can you imagine mounting somebody and you throwing elbows and it's your elbow that cracks his cranium? Okay? it's a dirty sport when you think about it, where it's mano a mano, we're fighting. It's not ping pong. We're there to hurt each other, but there's plenty of guys out there to hurt that aren't our friends. And I got that completely. I said, yeah, that's the reason why. That's why when I hear people talk all the time, yeah, I'd fight a friend for $1 million. Oh, it's not worth it to me. But for George's sake right now, I think he's got that itch, man. He's got that itch to just let it all out and just beat the crap out of someone.
Joe and I are back tomorrow night. Also, we're here Saturday night. And tonight, I am back with Rob McCarran of Shake Them Ropes post SmackDown. He had some technical issues before, and we switched nights with him and Jeff. Now, Joe, I don't know if you're familiar with Rob, but he pledged a year ago that if CM Punk ever fought in the UFC, he would, and I quote, eat a hat.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So as I said to Jeff, like, I bet if you went to his house, if you broke into Rob McCarran's house and you went to Google, and you know how it does the autofill thing?
Yeah.
And you typed in, like, W, it would fill out, will I die if I eat a hat? Like, something like that.
I believe
you know,
that's crazy, man. That's why I don't wager, man. Because
WH, where can I find edible hats? One of those things. And I think that if he finds an edible hat, people will be okay with it. I don't think people want Rob to die, despite what our comment board sometimes says about him. I think that they like Rob, and he has a great show, Shake Them Ropes. He's great on Fightful.com. He's got to find a way around it. Maybe a cheese hat. I don't know. But
dude, you just figured it out for him. You totally figured it out for him because now he's got a fallback. It's a hat, and I mean,
if you think he hasn't done that research on his own already, man. I got to end the show. There are sirens outside my house. Apparently, things get real here in suburban Kentucky. Guys, I am back tonight. Me and Joe are back tomorrow night and Saturday. Full coverage of UFC 203. Lots of cool stuff coming to Fightful.com. Until next time, we are out.